This week, we are starting our conversation about analysis by division. I'm going to go through most of the materials. Again, the reading the samples, I will leave for you to do after class in your own time if you haven't gotten to read them yet. And so we will just go through the module on Canvas, end with one role play about vocal delivery, and then questions and answers, any specific questions you might have moving forward. Now, ABD, ABD gets 2 weeks. It is, if I'm not mistaken, the only module that really gets 2 weeks on its own explanation. Partly because once you know how to do analysis by division, you could pretty much do all the other forms, right? Usually when we look at writing, there is a form that underpins or a method that underpins all other methods of writing, right? Analysis by division is also, I don't want to say it's tricky, but as this is your first introduction for some of you into expository writing on the whole, you get 2 weeks with the first one and then 1 week with the other modes, right? So if you're not catching analysis by division this week, we have another week to go through and explore with it, right? It is your first step in structuring your writing in a very formal way, right? So what we want to get out of this week. Oh, it's not supposed to be 5 p.m. Anyway, that's a typo. We want to find the main features of an analysis by division. Look at some of the language we use when we're talking analysis by division, and you will spot that more in the sample writing. So look for language that clues you in that we are analyzing by splitting up a large topic into smaller topics. Then we will be looking at vocal delivery. So when we looked at vocalics, this is an extension of that. Remember, we talked about vocalics being use of the voice, not necessarily words, but the sound of the voice. So vocal delivery is deliberately playing with the sound of your voice and some of those vocalic techniques, right? So analysis by division, we take a large concept and we break it down into smaller components, right? So usually when we say this concept, it's a concrete concept. It's something we can see or experience with the 5 senses, but we need to explain it. So something like the governing structure of a country, how a university operates, what is a university and how it operates, explaining what a hospital is and how it functions, these kind of conglomerate or large scale concepts, and then we break it down into its individual pieces, right? So a university has several parts or departments that work together to make an entire university. So what you want to do is start with the whole idea. So we're looking at a university. This is the whole. And when we want to start identifying what are the parts in the whole? So ask yourself, what is the primary function of a university, right? In analysis by division, you call this the controlling principle. So if you say a university is meant to teach, to educate, or I can even say controlling principle is a university is a public or private institution meant to make an impact on the intellectual life of a community, right? So you find what is the one central function as called the controlling principle. And then you identify at least three or the three main intersecting divisions, right? These are the parts that come together to form that, to serve that controlling principle, to make that controlling principle happen. And we call those divisions. Right? So if you identify what the central function or the controlling principle is, then you can identify what are the different divisions that you need to discuss, right? So if we say university is an educational institution, and I expand education not just to mean books and lectures, but also cultivating a habit of investigating, analyzing the world around you, right? The divisions we need to find should all relate to the idea that the university is an educational institution, right? So we have three main divisions we could look at then for a university. So we say it provides education as the controlling principle. It does this by providing, through academia. So your classes, and those kind of activities. We do it through athletics. So you have physical education and administration, which is teaching you how to live with governing structures. Let's put it mildly like that, right? So in academics, our division one, academics, we have classroom instruction, we have research, right? In the case of UTT, we also have public outreach education. We go out in the public and we do lectures, right? The second division, athletics, we look at sports, physical therapy, we might health, again, in terms of dealing with the larger population, we might offer health classes for people to take, short courses, that kind of stuff. And administration, we're looking at research grants, which allows the research and academics to happen. Matriculation fees, which allow you to attend classes. And administering some of the other nitty-gritty things, right? So again, we start with a controlling principle, and we look at the divisions that make that controlling principle happen. So the controlling principle is the function of the large, unified organization or unit or concept. And then we look at each individual division and how these divisions work together to create that controlling principle. Right? Here's another example as a Venn diagram. So we're looking at some universities, for example, have a learning resource center. And in this, and the controlling principle of the main idea is to provide support services for students. So you have a library, tutoring center, technology learning center. So these are three different divisions inside of a learning resource center that should help students. right? So we look for components, elements, parts, kinds, areas, stages, or types. So these are some of the language you would see or use when you're doing an analysis by division. Don't necessarily have to call them divisions, right? So when you are planning your assignment between this week and next week, it's either for this week or next week, I think it's next week, you need to write an outline and an introduction for analysis by division. So in week 3, we do have a template you can use to help you brainstorm your topic, right? In terms of outlining, and we will get to doing, we will talk about doing a sentence outline before you actually have to write your outline. We start with that the whole unit. After we figure out what the controlling principle is, we come up with our divisions, what they call here the subtopics, and then we can break that down even further in each paragraph. Right. Now, if you click through that, it will also give you examples.
Outline for a 5-paragraph classification and division essay. In a basic 5-paragraph classification and division essay, you will follow a traditional structure common to most academic essays. You will have an introduction, plus body paragraphs, plus your conclusion. In this example outline for a classification and division essay, we will use the topic Higher Education and Technology. A classification and division thesis that might work well within that topic would be: many students would not be able to achieve the dream of a college education without the advances of technology, which allows them to take courses in various formats. Now we will take a look at how we could outline our introduction using our thesis with the goal of writing a classification and division essay. A good introduction provides background on a topic, transitions to the thesis, and then presents the thesis. In this example, we would first provide background on the topic of technology in higher education. Next, we would transition to our thesis and make the divisions for our essay clear by providing a summary of various course formats. We would then describe the choices within those formats the students have. Finally, we would transition to our thesis. It is important to note, as you think about creating a classification and division essay, you should think about the major divisions for your essay and then potential subcategories within those divisions. When you think about division, think about how you might divide your whole topic, then think about possible additional categories within those divisions. The body paragraph for our essay on technology and education could easily be organized into the different major divisions for the essay: courses in person, courses at a distance, and courses that combine both face-to-face and distance instruction. However, it is important to remember we are not simply going to list everything we know about these divisions. Instead, we should remember that our body paragraphs should focus on proving our thesis about how each category uses technology to help make college possible. A good conclusion will generally reinforce information from the body of the essay and remind readers of the thesis. In the outline for our conclusion, we might begin by summarizing the impact of technology, make connections to each of our categories, and then reaffirm our thesis. When we reaffirm our thesis, we will not state the same sentence exactly, but we will emphasize our point using different words.
Okay. my one caveat or addendum or addition for this is that when you're writing a formal outline, you do not have to plot out the introduction or the conclusion. We just start with a thesis statement, your thesis statement, and then we plot out the body paragraphs.
Let's say that again. What's your?
So when we're doing the formal outline, the sentence outline, we just need your thesis statement, and then you plot out your body paragraphs. You do not need to outline your introduction or your conclusion, right? Right, so this has some nice tips on writing your essay. Right, including, and I can't emphasize this enough, do not make your thesis too complicated, and it should be one sentence. You need to be able to sum up. This gets more difficult the longer the project, but you have to sum up your thesis in a sentence. Now, we haven't discussed thesis statements yet. I believe they're in this module, this week's work. But the thesis has two parts, making up one sentence. So it's usually is a complex sentence, and we will talk about sentences in a minute, right? Do not make your thesis too complicated. Don't try to cram a lot of words. Even in the example before, that is a very long thesis. It was straightforward, clear, easy to understand, gives you direction of what your essay is going to be about, right? So I will leave you, I can leave this for you to follow through on your own. So it's there. Again, if you don't see the link show up directly, you can click on the blue button, or you can even click up there on the title, and it will take you to the website. So this is an example, and again, I will leave you to read. What is nice about this example is that they annotate it for you. So when you go through, you will see notes and explanations of why the person did what they did, right? Right, so you see the little notes, and it can help you understand a little better what the author is doing. All right, good, yes. This is also downloadable. My recommendation is that when you have to write an outline, this is a formal version of an outline, and you can download it. It's a Word document, so you can download it, and you could plot in your personal information, right? So in the outline, we start with the thesis statement. Should be a complete sentence, one sentence. It will include your claim and the reasons you make that claim, right? So a university is an educational, a university, to function as an educational institution, a university needs an academic, athletic, and administrative, it needs academic, athletic, and administrative units, right? So I'm telling you what I'm doing in my essay. I'm going to explain a university by explaining these different units. One sentence, right? You start then with your first body paragraph. In your first body paragraph, you want to list out your topic sentence. Your topic sentence should be a complete sentence, and B, comes from the reasons that you make your claim. So I claim a university functions as an educational institution. That's the claim. My first section and my first reason is because it offers academics, right? So a university is an educational institution because it offers academic training. Then I take out my different subsections under that one main point. These do not have to be complete sentences, but they must support your topic sentence. So if I'm saying that the university is an educational institution because it offers academics, I will say, okay, so academics, the academic unit handles classroom instruction. So this is where we actively teach people. So we're educational. It offers, the academia also does research. So education in the broader sense in terms of bringing new knowledge. And the academic unit does public outreach. So it doesn't just hoard the knowledge, it takes the knowledge out there. So it's an university is an educational institution because of its academic unit, which does A, B, and C, right? So each of those subpoints, then one is A, classroom instruction, B, research, C, public outreach or public education. The next topic sentence, I will again pull from the reasons I make my claim. Not only does the university have offers formal education in terms of academics, it also offers physical education in terms of athletics. So we look at sporting programs and the things that teach. A sporting program will teach discipline, body control, healthy living, so on. It also has physical therapy classes, and that teaches you how to take care of injured people. So again, a different kind of education. And then it can also offer facilities for the public. So it might have a racetrack or a field that the public can use. And again, this is public outreach, and this is educating in a different sense. Then the third one, the administration. And the administration is important for the university to be, for not only does the university need to offer academics and physical education, but it also needs support systems for those. And that's where the administration comes in. So administration will secure research grants. Let's keep it in the same order. It will help matriculate students. So students will pay their fees. Students will understand how to go through the university, because that's what admissions and administration will help you do. It finds research grants. It helps academics apply for research grants, so it keeps research going and helps fund it. And it facilitates people being able to use like non-students to be able to use university to access education programs and so on and so on. So after explaining each individual unit or division, I have now explained how a university is an educational institution, right? So with each, you're repeating the process for each paragraph, and that's how you come up with your outline. The trick in the outline is if you had group work with the video, for example. So if you're doing group work, you're writing a group assignment, and one person comes up with an outline. The rest of the group should be able to follow and produce an essay based on the outline. So make sure that the jottings in your outline can help someone else flesh out your essay. It won't be necessarily the same style you would use. It won't be your voice per se, but they will be able to flesh out the ideas. Especially, this works very well in a group assignment. It also works very well if, you have to walk away from your essay for any reason. You can pick up at any point because you already have it plotted out. Right? This is just a reminder, and it gets you to think about actually writing so let's go through some of it. Right? You can if you download it as a PowerPoint, you could run the PowerPoint. I think I talked through it, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show the pictures, right? So the idea before you write, as we just talked about, right? Before you start to write, do your what we call pre-writing exercises. So there are 3 stages to writing any essay: pre-writing, drafting, and editing. They're all, I would say, equally important. This is also an example of analysis by division, how you write an essay. There are 3 sections to writing an essay. You need to pre-write, you need to draft, and you need to edit. So in terms of pre-writing, this is where the outline comes in. The outline is part of your pre-writing. So before you sit down to write any kind of paragraph or essay, plan out what you want to do. So remember, when you pick your topic, you're looking for the controlling principle. So you're looking for something that works as a unit but has smaller parts to it. What makes it all work? What is the core function of that whole unit or whole thing? What is it meant to do, right? And then you want to look at the smaller elements, these little pieces that work together to make the large unit do what it's supposed to do. So you're looking for the controlling principle and you're looking for the division. So your first step when you get a topic is to sit down and go, what is the controlling principle? Because remember, the controlling principle tells you which divisions you're going to come up with, right? Which divisions are important to discuss to explain how the whole unit functions to achieve its main purpose. So now that you do that, make sure you have enough evidence, enough examples you can draw on, right? So if you're talking about a university as an educational institution, you have a lot of information. You're currently taking classes, so that's first-hand information there. You might be a student athlete, so you have information about the athletics program. You might have attended lectures or classes at other universities or institutions without necessarily being enrolled as a student. So we will be making sure we have enough information, examples, evidence. Right, so to do that, you can list, map, cluster, or other brainstorming technique. So brainstorming is really free association, just coming up with as many ideas as you possibly can, and either writing it out on a list or drawing a map. If you're a more visual person, you could draw a map. You can write main points and then draw off little sub points and see how they connect. So that's like clustering. All these things should get you a rough sketch of what your paper will look like. Right, and now it's time to start doing your thesis. So for the ABD, the thesis would be: the controlling principle is best understood when we analyze its divisions, right? So not using the exact language, but you want your thesis to show how the divisions help explain the controlling principle, or the main idea of the main function of that whole unit, right? And then each body paragraph will take one division and explain it. So what you have here too, then, is another template you can use. And here's an example. Right? So if you really want to understand communication, the overall unit, and what communication is supposed to do, transmit information, we should examine its three media: written, oral, and nonverbal, right? So I'm splitting the idea of communication, transmitting a message from sender to receiver, into three separate forms: written, oral, nonverbal, right? I'm not going anywhere else but that in my essay. Written communication entails all text transmitted from a sender to a receiver that uses written symbols of a language, right? It is the most regulated form of communication. It has more exacting standards and rules, like grammar and syntax. Takes a more formal register. Most restrictive, if you are quote unquote illiterate, if you cannot read or write, you are restricted in society. Is also then the most restrictive way of communicating, because the receiver and the sender have to have a certain set of skills, right? In most cultures, it's the newest form of communication. Right? My second paragraph will deal with the second division that I identified: oral communication. Right? So while writing is relatively new, oral communication, when the sender transmits through speech to the receiver, is much older, right? I will include here sign language, even though technically sign language is nonverbal, but sign language has it's more regulated than body language and so on. It's a formalized language, right? So it's less regulated, it's less restrictive, so that more people can communicate with oral communication, we have different judgments. It's usually more frequent and impromptu, right? So whereas if I'm in a gathering, I won't write a note necessarily to communicate. I will just speak. So it's less restrictive in that sense. It's restrictive in another sense in that we attach social status to it. And then my third division is nonverbal, when the sender uses body language and visual aids to transmit messages to the receiver, right? So we'll talk about body language, and it's usually unconscious, visual aids, and so on. And by explaining these three divisions, I then explain how communication as a whole works. What I mean by sender, message, and receiver in three different contexts. Right? So again, we have different samples you can read. You can click on the links. I'll also go through and let me make sure these links work now. Okay, good, they still work. Right? So any questions so far on analysis by division? Or do you want to hold your questions to the end? Okay, I'll take that as you want to hold your questions to the end.
Question.
Yes?
About the last essay we had to do the written sample.
Yes.
When would you be grading us?
The sample doesn't count to your end grade. It is for me to see where you are, where we're working it with. It's a measuring stick more than anything else. So I'm going through it, but marked assignments will take precedence, right? But it really is to see, just to measure progress and growth, right?
Okay, thanks, Miss.
So let's look at vocal delivery. Right? So you'll notice some of the things we looked at last week with vocalics come across when we talk about vocal delivery, right? So that includes because I blind, I can't see that small thing, right? The rate, so how fast you speak or how slowly you speak. So usually when we feel comfortable in a situation, we speak a little faster. In a more formal setting, we will speak slowly. We will try and enunciate so people can hear us. So we speak a little more slowly, right? When we are confused, we speak slowly. When we are confident, we might speak a little faster. This also has some regional implications. Certain regions speak faster than others. So we're looking, when we talk about rate, we're talking about the speed of your speech. So again, this is not really the words themselves, but how quickly you speak, right? when you're doing a public presentation, you want to aim for the middle. You don't want to be too fast. You don't want to be too slow. The slower you are in a public, if you're giving a prepared speech, or you're giving a speech in public and you hem and you haw and you hesitate, it suggests that you don't know what you're talking about, or you might be lying. And actually, the same thing goes if you're talking very quickly. It might give off the impression that there are things you're trying to gloss over, or you don't really want people to catch exactly what you're saying, right? So if you, for example, see an ad for medication, so if you're watching cable and you see an ad for medication, and you would notice the verbal equivalent of fine print, right? They will read through the complications or the potential side effects very quickly, so you're not going to catch all of it. So it's like that fine print you might see at the bottom of an ad, you know, right? So that speed is meant to one, get through a lot of information very quickly, and two, kind of obscure the information because you're not really receiving the message. You know it's being sent, but you don't know what the message actually is because it's too fast for you to understand, right? Volume is, of course, your volume. And so in a formal speech or in giving a speech, formal, informal, it doesn't matter. We play around with the volume to emphasize or de-emphasize, right? So, for example, when you're speaking and if you drop your voice and you go very soft, people have to lean in to hear what you're saying. So you're by controlling your volume, you're actually making people focus their attention, right? The opposite is also true. If I raise my volume on certain words, I am stressing those words. And so, again, I call attention to something very specific in the message, right? So when we are giving formal speeches, when we are reading aloud, and I think the assignment for this week is to do a read aloud exercise, right? When we play around with volume, we add emphasis, or call attention to, or de-emphasize, etc., playing with volume. Pitch is partly natural and partly something you can play with. It is how high or how low in terms of frequency, right? So, you know, some people have a high-pitched voice. They speak like that. They have a high-pitched voice all the time. And some people have a low-pitched voice. They go very low down in their chest and very, very low. Because we live in a westernized patriarchal society, we tend to give more attention to lower registered voices. We tend to think they're more important. That's a cultural thing. But playing with pitch allows us to communicate more. It makes the speech more interesting, right? When we're excited, we tend to go up in pitch. So if you want your audience to be excited about something, you might play around with how high your voice goes. Just knowing that if it goes too high, it could also irritate a lot of people. So it's playing around with how high or how low in frequency, right? Going between, if you're a singer, going between being a bass and a soprano, that's our range. We can go very low, we can go very high, depending on what we want to emphasize. Right? So putting these things together, your rate, volume, pitch can lead to vocal variety in a speech. You don't want to overdo it as you're speaking, because then you sound quite mad. But playing around with these different forms of vocal delivery can make for a more interesting speech. So this is actually something we do when we're talking to our friends, family, co-workers, just informally, almost instinctively, right? What we're looking at here is deliberately switching up your voice, using your voice for other things. Okay. Now, we add to this different methods of being clearer when you speak. So articulation, and once upon a time, again, I think pulling this from methods they use in a choir, you'd actually stand in front of a mirror and watch the shape of your mouth when you're pronouncing things, right? Articulation refers to the clarity of sound. This clarity very formally comes from the shape of your mouth, how you hold your lips, where you put your tongue, how you have your, in relation to your teeth, and so on. These are things that help clarify your speech, right? We know people who have a very lazy speech pattern. They don't differentiate the words. They kind of slur here, right? And they have people who enunciate every word. So articulation speaks to that, right? Now, in informal speech, we might say something like "what happened," right? And that is that deals with articulation. We are not actually forming the words with the prescribed facial features, placement of the tongue, and so on and so on. So what happened, which has it's what happened now, right? We don't take time to form the T in what. We don't aspirate the H in happen. We don't even do what they call the glottal stop for P. The labial stop for P, happen, right? So when we look at linguistics, for example, what happened should be what happened, or what is happening if you really want to be non-lazy. But articulation would tell you, if you want to pronounce the entire word, what, you take your tongue, when you pronounce a T, your tongue touches the tip of the roof of your mouth right behind your teeth. And that's how you get the T sound. When you're doing a P sound, your lips have to be closed and you are expelling breath forcefully, happen. And then the H is a sound when you're expelling air with your lips open. So if you are studying articulation, you actually study where the body parts, the different parts of your mouth, where they are positioned, how they're positioned to say each word and each letter, right? So it matters more in formal speech and it matters for clarity, right? Not everybody will know what WAP mean, YD, right? Sometimes they would need to hear the letters I, they. I am there, right? So we want to think of these things actually starting to combine. They're not separate issues. They all combine for clarity of speech. Pronunciation is how we actually sound the word or how we say the word. And it relies, again, when we talked about varieties of English, it relies on the culture you come from, your level of education, and so on, right? so there are certain words that we will pronounce a certain way in the Caribbean that might not be the pronunciation in the US or Canada or England or Africa or India, for example, right? Pronunciation, knowing the accepted or the typical pronunciation in the culture that you're trying to communicate with helps clarify what you're trying to see, right? We talked about fluency again. Just so to reiterate, that is how well your speaking flows. Some people have, like I'm doing now, pauses, and they fill it with ums, ahs, ers, right? In Trinidadianese, we fill it with non-verbal communication, right? The ting, the ting, and we will do something like that, right? So fluency is how well you flow when you're speaking. In public speaking, you gain fluency by practicing your speech. So if you are approaching a topic for the first time, trying to speak on it, articulate it, you might find yourself pausing a lot more, searching for words, right? The more familiar you are with the topic and what you want to present, the easier it is you will start to flow in your speech. So fluency is how your speech flows. Verbal fillers can be very distracting in a formal speech. A lot of ums and ahs. One of best examples of fluency and somehow making it work as a speaking style would be Barack Obama, who paused quite a lot. He would have a lot of fluency hiccups. He would pause. But I think some of them were quite deliberate and suggested that the person was thinking before giving an answer. Right? So, any questions so far? So far, I think I have one more thing on vocal delivery. Right? This repeats it in a shorter form. So this is like a lovely little cheat sheet where you get, also gives you some exercises you can do to improve your formal speaking. Right? So I just gave you all a wealth, just throw in a lot of information, right? So this is specifically on volume and how you can play with your volume. And different techniques if you're using a microphone or if you're just speaking Acapulco without amplification. Now, the formal exercise or the discussion we have, I have a series of videos. We could watch one or two of them now, but this is for you to have an open discussion afterwards. So you can watch the videos and assess the videos and have your reactions to them. I will play
Ladies and gentlemen of the Starr County Republican Party Executive Committee, good evening. And thank you, not only for your attendance, but for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Phil Davidson, and I am seeking our party's nomination for the position of Stark County Treasurer on November 10th, November of 2010, excuse me. In terms of my background, I am from the village of Minerva, where I'm serving my 13th year of elected service as a Minerva Council member. In terms of education, I have a bachelor's degree in sociology, a bachelor's degree in history, a master's degree in public administration, and a master's degree in communication. In terms of elections across Stark County, I have represented our party twice on the county ballot in both the primary and the general elections when I ran for Stark County Clerk of Courts in 1996 and Stark County Commissioner in 2000, and I will not apologize for my tone tonight. I have been a Republican in times good, and I have been a Republican in times bad. Albert Einstein issued one of my most favorite quotes in the history of the spoken word, and it is as follows. In the middle of opportunity, excuse me, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. I'm going to repeat that so I have clarity tonight. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. This is the opportunity we've been waiting for. The Stark County Treasurer's Office is a mess. It is in dire need of structure and guidance. And now is the time to seize this opportunity with an aggressive campaign and an even more aggressive campaigner. If nominated tonight, I promise each and every person in this room, I will hit the ground running, come out swinging, and end up winning. Let's send a message tonight to the people of Stark County and to the people of the Stark County Democratic Party. We're tired of business as usual. Drastic times require what? Drastic measures, yes. Who said that? Thank you. Drastic times require drastic measures. We will not tolerate incompetence and irresponsibility any longer. Now is the time to snap the Democratic stranglehold on the Treasurer's Office in two. And I harken back to what my friend Alex just said. He ran against the Treasurer in 1996. It was a problem then, it's a problem now. Infestation. Politics is not touch football. Politics is winner take all. It always has been, and it always will be. If nominated tonight, I want to develop and expand my campaign for what I believe is the greatest strength of the Stark County Republican Party, and that is its people. I believe in the axiom that all politics is local. And because of this belief, I want to harness the thoughts and ideas that individuals in our party have concerning Stark County and its political subdivisions. And use that to its fullest extent. Knowledge is power. Let's tap into this knowledge and use it as a tool to win the Treasurer's Office. Let's use this knowledge not only as a tool, but as a weapon. We must win this election. If nominated tonight, I will win this election. And I'm going to say that again so there's no miscommunication tonight. If nominated tonight, I win. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell Randy Gonzalez. I'm coming. Both barrels, guns loaded. I believe in the entities and the principles of the National Republican Party, the State of Ohio Republican Party, and the Stark County Republican Party. And if nominated, I will not hide those beliefs on my march to victory on Election Day. If nominated tonight, I can guarantee with 100% certainty that what you are seeing from me tonight is what everyone outside those doors is going to get over the next 8 weeks. I used to be an idealistic thinker. I am now a pragmatic thinker. Government may be about service. Politics is about winning. Tonight, as a candidate seeking the Republican nomination for the position of Starr County Treasurer, I humbly ask for your vote as members of the Starr County Republican Party Executive Committee. Thank you.
What are your thoughts on that speech?
Miss, he was all over the place. He's shouting. His body movements is distracting. His voice tones were out of place. All this emotion. And you know what? Up to now, I haven't heard a clear message, what he really want to say and stuff. It was not clear. It in between, coming to the end, you start to hear him saying his main points, but it was just sheer confusion. I would have like sit there, and all I would have remembered is how he pacing and carrying on and all that. That's all what like stick here, not the actual message. And I will not take him seriously because I'm thinking that he's like not real. He's too much. He put too much of this emotion and carrying on and stuff into it. Like it's like, you know, he's trying to persuade. So I was looking in the beginning, I thought he was like a minister, a young budding minister doing a street message and wants to get people to hear and they had to use that. So that is what I get from that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
To me, it was hard to keep a straight face without laughing. That was ridiculous. His voice, the pacing, he was mostly sounding like he was quarreling with the audience and not delivering a speech, and you couldn't really focus on the points he was putting across as to why you should elect him and these things. It was just ridiculous. I was laughing.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Because I find he was just loud.
He was just loud?
And he was moving up too much.
Miss, I could see that he was passionate about whatever he was talking about.
So you take that as passion?
Yeah.
Okay. Two more opinions.
Wow. 1 minute is like he quarrel, and the next minute is like he want to cry or something. It's like you can't keep up with the emotions, and I don't understand anything at all.
Okay. So he's loud, emotional, paces too much. One kind soul said passionate, which sounds like a euphemism at this point for unhinged. One more.
Bessie didn't pronounce any of his words properly.
There was some serious mispronunciations, especially coming down to the end, right? So he is loud, overly emotional or passionate, does not pronounce words correctly. What about his fluency?
And none, because of how he keep changing his pitch.
Right, so there were instances where he broke in the middle of the sentence, and that's because he was trying to read and engage the audience at the same time, so he kept moving away from his speech, and he would lose himself and break in the middle of the sentence and have to find where he was to finish the sentence. So these were unintentional pauses which interrupted his fluency. If you, and I think it's where did she go? Francine said this, but I want to elaborate on that. If you were in that audience, would you trust this person?
No, I would say that this person is on some kind of drug Because the way how he was getting on.
I think he was angry.
Serious.
He was too angry. He couldn't contain himself to deliver his message properly.
Right. He was too angry. He paced up and down and was sweaty and seemed like he was on something. Did you believe him when he talked about his credentials? Did he convince you that he had what he said he had?
Not in the manner that he was delivering it.
Right. So we're seeing an example of how vocal delivery could actually undermine your credentials. I found it was quite hilarious when he said he had a master's in communication and he couldn't communicate properly. So we have in this discussion thread, I have examples of different speeches for you to go through and really looking at how the delivery of in each speech, how, you know, its effects, how was the delivery? So what was the vocal variety? How did they manipulate their pitch, their volume, frequency, fluency, pauses? Were the pauses effective, not effective? Did they seem deliberate or accidental? How did they pronounce words? Bear in mind, some of these speeches are would come from different regional Englishes. So bear that in mind when you're looking at pronunciation and even articulation to a certain extent. Articulation is also affected by age, false teeth. So if you don't have teeth, it's hard to pronounce certain words. So bear all that in mind when you're watching the videos. So just like we went through with the scary politician, you can see how vocal delivery affects how somebody gets the message, especially if they should trust the message that you're sending, right? Now, the last bit of instruction, right? We're looking at
Welcome to week 3 tutorial.
so
Tutorial, we will discuss two things: sentence types and paragraph structure. It is split up into two sections. This first section will be on sentence. At the end of this tutorial, we will be able to explain what a phrase, clause, and sentence are. Identify the different types of sentences. Outline the structure of an effective paragraph. Write an effective paragraph. This is a required tutorial for week 3 activities. So first, let's look at phrases, clauses, and sentences, or what I'd like to call the building blocks of your writing. Make sure you have a pen and paper handy so you can take notes. Remember, writing your notes helps you remember it even better. Now let's look at the building blocks. The smallest unit of communication in any language is the letter. We make phonemes out of letters as the smallest unit of meaning. We make words out of phonemes. What is the next component of communication? We also use our sentences to issue a command. This is called an imperative sentence. Here are some examples of imperative sentences. And we also use our sentences to ask a question. This is called an interrogative sentence or interrogative sentence. There are two types. An interrogative sentence either demands a yes or no answer, or is meant to get an answer that says what, where, which, who, whom, when, why, whose, or how. Of the three, declarative, imperative, and interrogative, it is best to use the declarative sentence to show cause and effect or make a comparison. And what do we mean by cause and effect? You can either show how a cause leads to an effect. See the examples of structure over here. Or how an effect is caused. If you're doing a comparison or a contrast, you can introduce your comparison to your audience. During your paragraph, and to conclude.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Wait, 3, 4. Sorry about the volume. I think I pressed mute by mistake. Hopefully it recorded properly, but also you can review this when you go through the modules, right? Yeah.
Welcome back. This is week 3 tutorial part 2. Let's look at paragraphs. Now that we have basic sentences down pat, it's time to look at what we use them for. We use sentences to build paragraphs. So, there are 3 parts to a paragraph. The topic sentence or opening sentence, which tells your reader the main idea of your paragraph. Supporting sentences, which help you develop that idea. And a concluding clincher sentence, which brings it all home by restating the main idea. Let's look at the topic sentence. The topic sentence opens your paragraph and sets the tone. It should represent the main idea of the paragraph. Note that a paragraph
Has one main idea. Now the supporting sentences. The supporting sentences provide evidence for your topic sentence. They help you flesh out the main idea. Do not stray from your main idea. I often recommend at least 5 to 6 supporting sentences so that your paragraph will have about 8 sentences altogether, minimum. The last sentence is your concluding or clincher sentence, and it should do 2 things. Restate the main idea, provide a transition for the next paragraph. Here's an example of a paragraph where I've separated the topic sentence, supporting sentences, and the concluding sentence. Take a minute to read. Notice an example how the topic sentence tells us how Brian is a bad student. All the supporting sentences tell us how Brian is disruptive, inattentive, and rude. Notice how each supporting sentence is grouped and linked. All the disruptive sentences, all the sentences that support Brian is disruptive, are grouped together. All the sentences that support Brian is inattentive are grouped together. And all the sentences that support Brian is rude are grouped together. Notice how the concluding sentence restates the main idea with synonyms or synonymous phrases. Disruptive, continuous outbursts, inattentive, inability to focus, and rude, bullying behavior. So what follows a slow down version of the video, so you can, it just reinforces some more clarification on sentence function, right? We have 4 basic functions of a sentence, and it could be declarative, interrogative, imperative, or exclamative, right? When we look at verbs, so this might be a little back to front, but when we're doing parts of speech and we look at verbs, for example, verbs have what we call moods. And the different verb moods help us craft different functions of the or sentences to do different functions, right? So when we look at the declarative sentence, right? So the declarative sentence is the most basic sentence. It is a sentence meant to deliver a specific message, piece of information, right? They all end with a full stop. You can use any tense, and it's what you call the verb indicative mood, right? So this is your straightforward verb tenses. It is simply meant to make a statement. It's declaring something. Right? So most of our simple, compound, complex sentences, once they end in a full stop, they're making a declaration, they're making a statement. The other kind of sentence, you have interrogative. This is another basic sentence function that we all used to. This is where we ask a question. Ends in a question mark, uses what we call the interrogative verb mood. So usually when we're asking a question, we change the structure of the sentence. And so you would find word placement would be slightly different. So a declarative sentence, I would say, I am late. In the interrogative, I am switching the verb and this case pronoun. Am I late? Right? So usually when we're doing an interrogative sentence or asking a question, you would find that the structure is a bit different than a declarative, right? Now, sometimes in informal speech, we get around this by simply changing our pitch. Usually a declarative statement or a declarative sentence has an even pitch. It does not go up or down in the end. I am late. Interrogative, we go up at the end. Am I late? Some people might say, I am late. And so that pitch will also indicate the function. But in writing, because we cannot manipulate the pitch of our voice, we actually change the structure of the sentence. Right? So the formula will look something like this. Right? We might use an interrogative pronoun. Who did that? What was that? Why am I here? Plus the auxiliary verb, the subject, and the main verb. If there is no auxiliary verb, but usually there's an auxiliary verb, either the verb to be, the verb to do, or the verb to have. Those are our typical auxiliary verbs. An auxiliary verb helps the main verb to function, right? So what, interrogative pronoun, have, auxiliary verb, you, subject, done, main verb. Let's look at some examples, right? So we have the interrogative pronoun here, what, auxiliary verb, are, subject, you, main verb, doing. The other example, interrogative pronoun, how, auxiliary verb, did, main subject, James, main verb, get, and I actually have an adverbial here. The next type of sentence or sentence function is the imperative sentence. This is where you give an instruction. It can end in a full stop or an exclamation mark, depending on how urgent the instruction is. It also uses what we call the imperative verb mood, and we'll talk a little bit when we look at the examples again, right? So to make an imperative sentence, you also change the structure of a declarative sentence. So again, because it is in writing, we need to change the structure. If we are speaking and it's less formal, we would use vocal delivery to indicate whether or not it's imperative, declarative, interrogative, and so on. So the basic formula is we use the second person form of the verb, simple present tense. So the present tense, second person form of the verb, plus a participle, which is the extra suffix we add on a verb, and the object, the person you're giving, the person or thing you're giving the command to, right? So some examples: sit down. So sit is you, if you want to flesh it out, it's you sit down. So the verb is the second person, sit down. Adverbial here would be our object, or in this case, object complement, right? If this was translated into the declarative form, it'd be sit you down, which sounds weird. So sit down. Stop the car. So again, you stop the car. The car is the object. Stop is the second person verb or form of to stop. These are very special sentences. Notice these are complete sentences. The subject is implied. It's usually second person. Doesn't really work then if you're talking to a third person. The last line is the exclamative sentence. And this ends in a exclamation mark. It shows surprise or strong emotion. So this is the sentence version of an interjection. We make an exclamative sentence by changing the structure of the declarative sentence, right? So usually we have the interrogative what or the interrogative how, plus an adjective or an adverb, a noun, a subject, and a verb. So some examples. What, the interrogative pronoun. Cool, the adjective. Shoes, noun. Subject, you. Main verb, have. If this was a declarative sentence, we would say, you have cool shoes. As an exclamation, we would say, what cool shoes you have? The other example, interrogative pronoun, how. Adverb, slowly. James, subject. Verb, drives. How slowly James drives, right? And this is meant to express exasperation. If it was a declarative sentence, we would say James drives slowly. And this is also more detailed on parts of a paragraph. And we can't stress enough, a paragraph is the exploration of a single idea. You don't want to cram different ideas in your paragraph. And as in the video, you have a topic sentence, supporting sentences, and concluding or clincher sentence. Usually in formal writing, we like the topic sentence to be the first sentence of the paragraph. And so in structuring that first sentence, it's better that you put the transition as a dependent clause, and then your main point as the independent clause. So you can use a complex sentence. Your topic sentence is the main idea of your paragraph. It is like a mini thesis statement. So your essay has a thesis statement. That's the overall main idea of your essay. The topic sentence is the main idea of the paragraph. Right? So in this example, your topic for your paragraph is how you spent your day, or how was your day. The example here for topic sentence, today started off hectically, but ended beautifully. And so this sets up the expectation that the paragraph will show how you transition from a hectic start to a beautiful finish in that day. Right? So looking again at the example from the video, the topic sentence, Brian has proven to be a disruptive, inattentive, and rude student. So that topic sentence tells me all I need to know, really, and what I expect you to elaborate on in defining Brian as a bad student. So I expect you to explain how he's disruptive, inattentive, and rude. Right? Each supporting sentence should help you flesh out the main idea. And they should be grouped. So here's a visual representation of them being grouped together. We have disruptive, inattentive, and rude. So these are the main subpoints that I want to address in my paragraph. So everything in blue relates to him being disruptive. Right, so I have a basic definition. He continually disrupts class by speaking out of turn. Right, and then showing how this is disruptive. So he speaks out of turn. He has frequent side discussions and outbursts and makes inappropriate jokes. So these three examples show how he's disruptive. He's actually intervening in class discussion, interrupting class discussion. So I've grouped all my disruptives together. Then the next subpoint is inattentive. So I group all my inattentive examples together, right? He's not paying attention in class at all. He's often on his cell phone, which is another example of being inattentive. And even if he doesn't have his phone, he looks out of the window. So he's not paying attention at all in these three instances or examples. The next one is rude. So not only does he generally speak out on his own or create outbursts or tell jokes, he actively interrupts other students when they're trying to contribute. And he usually does it by insulting them or being aggressive. So notice how all my examples for the 3 different subpoints are grouped together. Right? As for the clincher sentence, like we said in the video, should provide, it should sum up everything and provide a transition to the next paragraph. So the example here, Brian's continuous outbursts, inability to focus, and bullying behavior warrant serious attention and intervention. So here I have both summed up what I mean by being disruptive, inattentive, and rude. And I'm also suggesting in the next paragraph, we will talk about intervention. How do we correct this behavior? Right. I'm going to, this video is about the different parts of an essay, introduction, I should say the series of videos. So at least looking as far as the introduction, because your next written assignment is an outline and an introduction, right? And this is actually, you have 2 weeks to do this, because between this week and next week, we'll be talking more about analysis by division and so on. Again, you can review on your own more slowly. Just a quick run through of what the information for this week. Don't forget to read these samples so you can get a better understanding of what an ABD looks like. I would say that you have 2 weeks to read the samples, so don't try and rush through all of them. We will be next week actively looking at and dissecting your different samples for what you can pull out of it and how it helps you understand doing an ABD. So the second to last thing, we're going to split up into groups of 3 to 4, and we're going to try a vocal delivery exercise. So of the 4 of you, I need 2 people to take one each at a time, take turns in making a formal request to borrow something. Whatever you want to borrow is up to you. Do not indicate to your group whether or not you are going to deliberately manipulate your vocal delivery or how you're going to do it. Try out the techniques. And for the listeners, I want you to rate if the message was clear using the vocal delivery techniques, if it was convincing, and if the person you thought was credible or trustworthy, if you would actually lend whatever the item is to the person, okay? So I will split you up into groups of 4. It will be a random splitting up. You can decide which 2 of you, at least 2, let's take 50 minutes for both presenting and discussion in the breakout rooms, and then we will meet back and have at least 4 groups present on the experience, okay? Understood?
Yes.
All right. Oops. Just yes. Hey, how was that?
It was fun.
It was okay.
Okay. So, at least 4 groups share the experience with the rest of us. So whichever 4 wants to go. Don't all rush at once. So you will tell us who shared and then rate the vocal delivery. Was it convincing? Was the person trustworthy? How did they use their fluency, frequency, volume, rate, etc.? Articulation, pronunciation, all these different things.
Well, my group was Priya, Victoria, and Ethan. And Victoria and myself, we shared.
Okay.
Am I breaking up?
No. So you said you, Victoria, Priya, and
Ethan.
okay. So you, Victoria, Priya, and I'm hearing Aegon. I don't know why. That makes no sense.
Ethan.
Ethan, thank you. Keep your cameras on. Everyone else turn their camera off.
Miss my light blue, so you won't be able to see me.
That's it's so that I can identify the members of the group. So if you have camera, turn it on. Right? And so for the rest of the group, how would you rate Destiny's vocal delivery?
Miss, she was convincing.
Say that again.
I said she was convincing.
She was convincing. The 3 of you agree she was convincing?
Yes, miss.
What about her vocal delivery made her convincing?
She had a very formal register. You see how you use a register. A very sorry. She had a formal register.
So she had a very formal register. What about the volume?
Very clear, miss. The pitch and tone was very clear.
Okay, so pitch, tone, very clear. She pronounced things correctly or how you would expect things to be pronounced?
She didn't stutter at all.
Okay. So we're seeing that vocal delivery helps when we're trying to communicate that we're trustworthy. Because she didn't stutter, she pronounced things correctly, she wasn't too loud or too soft, she wasn't too fast, right? So her rate was good?
10 out of 10.
Right? So all these things combine so that the message she's trying to deliver is clear, easy to understand, and comes through. And actually, according to Ethan, achieved her purpose. He was convinced he would lend her whatever she was asking for. Right? Now the next person, Victoria, right? You made a formal request?
Yeah, I should.
So for the 3 of you, how do you rate Victoria's vocal delivery?
I believed everything she said. It was believable. It wasn't fake. Everything. It was convincing and it was trustworthy.
And what about her vocal delivery would make you think that?
Well, she did not stutter and it didn't sound like, like she was making it up or lying or anything like that.
Okay. So you spoke at an even rate?
Yeah.
The pronunciation was
good.
Standard of what we expected?
Yep.
Pitch.
Good.
Right.
It wasn't too high, too low. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Let me hear from our next group. So the same, the group, turn on your cameras. And we're looking at the vocal delivery and the impact of the vocal delivery. So group 2, whoever wants to volunteer their group.
Sorry, Miss, you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so my group was Beyonce, Shazana, and Celine. These ladies. You all around? Okay, so we did 2 different hello, Miss?
Yes.
Okay. So we did contrasting examples. So I shared and Shazana shared and Celine and Beyonce, well, so Shazana and I shared. So I did a contrasting where it was not believable and Shazana did something that was believable.
Okay. So let me hear from Shazana, Destiny, and Celine. What did you make of Chandra's message?
Well, Chandra, yours was the believable one. Mine was the unbelievable one.
Your one is sorry. Okay.
Right. So from Chandra's story, I would believe that she would give back what she borrowed. Because there are scenarios where persons would borrow that same item and would actually return it. She was actually understandable as well as to why she wanted to borrow it.
Okay, so what about the vocal delivery?
It was convincing. She was able to convince that she would bring it back.
Yeah, she seemed trustworthy with how she was talking.
Okay, so the rate of the speech, she wasn't talking too fast or too slow?
No, not too fast and not too slow.
Pronunciation.
Her pronunciation was understandable.
Okay. Pitch. Did she go up and down? Was her voice too high, too low?
No, it was okay.
Okay, so Chandra, Destiny, and Celine, what did you make of Shazana's message?
Well, Sajana, oh my God, sorry. She was more like unbelievable because we tried to do contrasting situations. So she was talking at a lower pitch and kind of way the pauses between words and sentences was it was long. So she was like talking like she not really sure and she was talking like she was uncertain. So that made me feel like she not really gonna bring back my book. So that is why I don't want to lend her anything.
Okay, Destiny or Celine?
Yeah, I agree with Chandra.
Okay.
She didn't seem trustworthy, according to what Chandra said, because she was continuously pausing between words. So it was hard to believe that she would have actually brought back the phone.
Yeah, miss, she was talking like she not sure what she going to do. So she was like, yeah, I really bring it back to you now. I will, don't worry. And she was just like a lower tone and she was being uncertain.
Okay, good. So I'm glad you both, your team experimented with how to be convincing and unconvincing with your vocal delivery. 2 more. All right, any 2 more. Just jump in. We do 2 more groups, then we do our roundup of question and answers and reflections, and then we're out.
It was me, Jillian, Haley, and Jasmine.
Okay. And so who made the request?
Dominic did.
He made
Dominic?
a request, and it was Haley as well.
Yeah. Right. So Jillian, Haley, and Jasmine, what did you think of Dominic's request?
Well, his request was clear.
Yeah, he was really fluent with his words.
Okay. So he was clear, he was fluent. So when you talk about he was clear, that we're talking about rate, articulation, and volume.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And was he convincing? Was he trustworthy?
I think he was. I think he was sincere with his request.
Okay. And so Dominic, Jillian, and Jasmine, what did you make of Haley's request?
It was good overall. She was really articulate and she pronounced words properly. It was really trustworthy.
Okay, so she was articulate and pronounced well.
She was sincere.
Sincere. What about the rate? Yeah. Her rate and her volume and her pitch.
Yeah.
Her everything was balanced.
Was even, yes.
Okay. Right. Thank you. And one more group. Don't forget to unmute, sorry.
Myself, Kimberly, Aaliyah, and Nikayla. We played along with a contrasting issue. Well, myself and Kimberly probably will be able to like talk on like how my speech was, right?
So you and Kimberly made requests? All right.
Yes.
So Nikayla, Kimberly, and Aaliyah, what did you make of Francine's request?
Her request was straight to the point. We understand what she was saying. We hear her tone in her voice when she was asking for the pen, how urgent she wanted it. And then when she started to beg and she said, please, we know how urgent it was. And she was trustworthy how she said it. And we would rate her at 10 because how she pronounced the word, how she said it, and how she spoke.
Okay. So what about, you stressed the word she used. What about pitch or volume rate?
It was high because she was begging. She was like, please. So that made it really convincing. So it showed us how urgent she needed to borrow the item. So it was really high.
Okay. So she actually switched her pitch when she said, please. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And so Francine, Aliyah, Nikela, what did you make of Kimberly's message?
Kimberly was even toned throughout her message. She was convincing to the point, and she was like we needed to listen to her because she was conveying. We felt like, if we didn't give in to her what she asking for, we felt a sort of guilt by the way how she spoke and all of that. We will like, if we don't, we are guilty of not responding to her because of her suppleness of her voice. Her words were clear, her tone was even out, and yeah.
Okay, so in terms of pitch, did she use a higher pitch or a lower pitch?
It was consistent, I would say.
It was consistent because she seemed innocent. So it was like 1, 2, 3.
Didn't go up too high or too low. It was between and very convincing.
Okay. So she
and then we made a comparison to that of Nikela. Nikela was totally on the opposite, and we the way how she acts with and her facial emotion and all, she was like not trusting. We tell ourselves she acts at top, we will not get back that top at the end of her speech. So it was like a totally different contrast to the others.
So three of you did request.
Yeah.
All of us did it.
All of you did. Okay.
Yeah.
And so beside her facial expressions and the words, what about the pitch, her volume, frequency, fluency, these kind of things? Was her
pitch was aggressive.
Was aggressive.
Fast and aggressive.
Yeah.
So
it was fast and aggressive. Was like you're not getting back the top whether you're asking for not.
Okay, so she played around with the voice. So did the volume go up to make it seem more aggressive? Was she a bit loud?
Yeah, coming to the end.
Yeah.
Coming to the end, she was like, I'm voice it up.
Right. So we can see how playing around with our different vocalics and how we deliver our speech also enhances the message, right? So if you're doing public speaking or when you're doing your presentation for the end of this class, it's not enough to have factual information. When you're delivering your message vocally, you also have to pay attention to how I change my pitch, how often do I pause, am I doing a lot of ums or uhs in between, how is the sound of my voice helping to convey the message, right? So thank you all so much for sharing. And the last thing, we will go around the room and questions or takeaways. So let's start with.
Excuse me.
Yes?
When is the ABD assignment due? Because I've seen it's already due for Saturday, and you said that it's for next week.
It should be set for the 31st actually. The outline and introductory paragraph is supposed to be set for the 31st.
Miss, that's with like a group, like a peer or individually?
So you're going to submit it individually, and then you will have peer reviews. So each person will be assigned 2 submissions to peer review. How would you mark it if you're the instructor, basically? What you'd be looking for, is it clear? Does it follow the mode that it's supposed to follow? And so on and so on, right? It should be due on the 31st. I'm pretty sure I set it for the 31st, but I'll double check after class, but it should be for the 31st. Right?
That's the 5-paragraph essay?
No, just an outline. So you're outlining a 5-paragraph essay, and then you're writing the introductory paragraph.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Miss,
You want me?
is the introduction just the thesis sentence alone? Or
No. When you're writing the introductory paragraph, you're going to write the whole paragraph, right? So when we looked at the structure, and you can go over the structure of your introductory paragraph again, starting with the topic, narrowing it down to the issue about the topic, narrowing it down again to why it's significant to address it, your stance on it, and so on, and then ending with your thesis statement. So you're doing two things. You're developing the 5-paragraph essay, outline, the outline for a 5-paragraph essay, which is the thesis statement and each body paragraph. And then you are writing the actual introductory paragraph for the essay. And it is split over the 2 weeks. So the first week you might do the outline. The second week you can do the introduction, and it's supposed to all be due on the 31st. Right? So I put it up now so you can start thinking about it, start looking for a topic, Ramajan, and right. So by the time it's due, it's not a rushed thing. Okay.
So we can choose the topic.
There are I think 3 topics to choose from, and so you can choose whichever topic appeals to you most and use that. Right?
Miss, so it says that it due on the 17th on Canvas. So it actually due on the 31st.
It's open until the 31st for submissions. I don't generally, especially now with COVID, I don't take off marks for lateness per se, because there are extenuating circumstances that everyone would be facing. I much prefer that you do it in as timely a manner as you can up until the 31st. So it's open until the 31st.
Okay,
Miss,
thanks.
is there a word count?
No. Like we said when we went through the paragraphs, it should be at least 8 sentences. It can be more, but at least 8 sentences gets a fleshed out paragraph, right? That includes a topic sentence, at least 2 sentences per section or function of the paragraph. So in the introductory paragraph, you're starting with a topic sentence. This is the general topic that we're talking about. That's a sentence, 2 sentences maybe on the issue, 2 sentences on why it's an issue, 2 sentences on the significance of addressing this issue, and then your thesis statement as your last sentence. So that's 7 to 8 sentences, right? Not hard and fast, but it takes about 7 to 8 sentences to flesh out the idea in a paragraph, right? I don't generally do word counts. So
Excuse me, Miss, the outline would be like a line or a sentence before the paragraph.
The
With the
outline,
example.
so take the you can download the essay outline template and use that to write your outline. Follow that to write your outline.
Okay.
Right? So, any more questions? I'm just gonna go around the room picking people at random and have them share a closing thought for today's session. Kiara?
Yes, miss.
So, any closing thoughts? Major takeaway, what you need to go over, anything like that?
Um, um, yeah, I think it was a good session. I did learn a lot because this analysis by division is new to me, like really new to me. So yeah, I have to go over all the notes and all the slideshows that you have and stuff, like in my personal time to actually process and break down the information for my understanding. But yeah, it was a good session.
Okay, thank you. Zabina, am I saying that right?
Yes, miss. I thought today was very interesting and I learned new things that I didn't know before.
Care to elaborate anymore, or that's it?
That's it.
Okay. Anna?
Miss, today was really informative. I learned a lot of new stuff as well. Like stuff I didn't have an idea about before. I learned it today. It was really interesting. I enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Hero?
Yes, miss. I find today was a good class, and learning how to actually form and write your paragraphs was really interesting because that could help us later on.
Okay, thank you. And one more, Aaliyah.
I really enjoyed today's class, especially the exercise you did with asking the questions. You know, you could tell when someone's convincing, like if you know you're gonna get back that thing that you let them borrow. So I find that was really interesting.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We actually went up to 3 hours today. So I will see you next week when we will continue our discussion of analysis by division. Please, at the very least, read some of these samples so that you can see it in practice and have a better idea. So the samples would include some of the examples from last week when we did the general expository modes, and there were samples there. So there was a sample of analysis by division there, and then there's a specific sample for this week in this module, right? So read the samples, try as you're reading them to identify what the structure is. So the thesis statement, the topic sentences, how each paragraph is developed, how does that help prove the thesis statement, and so on. So not just for content, read for structure, okay? And I will see you all next week. Please God, enjoy the rest of your week.
You
too.
Bye.
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 Bye.